Good morning.
Good morning.
I am the newest member. Swimming around in this waters with all of you has been a lot to learn, and I'm trying to keep up and learn. I have my training class on September the 21st, and I'm looking forward to that, to be a better member and learn how to tip properly and hopefully aid all of us in business growth. Thank you, Sean. I shared with Sean a little bit about my background. I'm a native Californian. I grew up in Manhattan Beach. I went to Maricosta High School, grew up surfing, became an Eagle Scout at 14, went to Loyola University undergraduate, and somewhere along the, I grew up in yachting and sailing, and somewhere along the way in my early 20s, I met a man while sailboat racing out of Marina Del Rey. I met Bert J. Friedman, and Bert J. Friedman was amassing the land at Melrose and San Vicente to build the Pacific Design Center. Bert said to me, I think there's a place for you in our organization. Why don't you come up and meet my partner? And I did, and the rest is history to my beginning a 25-year career in commercial industrial real estate. I stayed with the Friedman organization while we built the PDC. We hired Gruen and Associates, which you all know, the architectural firm. The building's blue, the first building. It was called Gruen Blue because Gruen had built a lot of buildings that were blue. Caesar Pelli gets the credit for being the architect, but he really wasn't. A man named Eduardo Contini was actually the architect, and Caesar Pelli was his assistant. But Eduardo Contini would die, and Caesar Pelli would go on at Gruen and get the credit for it, and then design the second and the third building, which is now built, which I think the colors are green and yellow. Anyway, that building was built to hold the contract and residential furnishings industry for Southern California on a wholesale basis, and was not open to the public. And we moved all the furnishings industry people off the streets of Beverly and Robertson into the building. And I traveled all over America at a young age in my early 20s with Bert Friedman and Ron Case, and we gathered up those people and we moved new people into the properties on the street after we moved them into the building. So it was a great opportunity for 4 years. I went to the D&D building in Chicago. I went to all the furnishings industry in the Carolinas, and anyway, it was an amazing education. But after 4 years, I left and opened up C. Thomas Ruppert and Associates Commercial and Industrial Real Estate. And I would be on Robertson Boulevard for the next 20 plus years, remaining in that community. Somewhere after about 4 or 5 years, so I was 26 then, so in my early 30s, our law firm was Pack, Ross, Warren, Bernard, and Sears in Century City, and one of the senior people in the firm I was walking down the hall one day, said, I have a client, his name was Henry Plitt, and Henry Plitt bought the ABC theater chain, and the attorney said to me, we have no acquisition and disposition individual for our real estate assets, and we would like you to handle the southeastern United States. And so he said, would you be willing to do that? I said, yeah, that sounded exciting. So I traveled every 2 weeks to every little city in Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, the Carolinas, the Virginias, and all through the southeastern United States. And everywhere they owned a theater, I looked at whether or not it should be sold because it was becoming obsolete with where the population was growing to, or it was just starting to twin theaters. So we would take a 400-seat theater and they would reposition the seats, they would put a dividing wall, a divisible wall down the middle, and they would twin. And that was the start of theaters becoming multi-screen. So that was an exciting time in my life. And I stayed with that project for about 2 or 2.5 years, and it was really interesting. So anyway, I can tell you lots of different projects like that. I had Robert O. Anderson, who was the chairman of Atlantic Richfield, come to me. I attended the Aspen Institute for Humanistic Studies and met Mr. Anderson, and he came up to me and said, I'd like to have a glass of wine with you. I went down to Atlantic Richfield, actually met him at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, and he said, I have a project where Gene Furstenberg, who was the director of the American Film Institute, wanted to move from the Greystone Mansion in Beverly Hills to her own campus. And he said, she's called me to head up the capital campaign. I'm going to hand her to you. Keep me out of the capital campaign, but I will make a contribution. I met Gene Furstenberg. They occupied the Greystone Mansion in Beverly Hills, which is at the top of Doheny Drive. They had been there for 10 years, paying $1 a year. The city was raising their rent to $10,000 a month. Immaculate Heart College was being sold at Western and Los Feliz. He said, why don't you try to take her there? I did. I became the consultant to AFI. I wrote up a proposal. It was a sealed bid to Coldwell Banker, and we were one of 2 bids. We negotiated the successful purchase. She didn't have the money to buy it. She said, what are we going to do? I don't have the money to buy it. And I said, well, let's go meet Mr. Anderson, sit down. And I proposed borrowing from the foundation $1 million for her down payment, interest-free for 3 years, so that she would be able to pay it back, hoping the foundation would forgive it, which it did. So she bought the property with borrowed money from the Atlantic Richfield Foundation. But anyway, AFI is there. We hired Hardy Holtzman and Pfeiffer in New York. I went to New York and hired them because they were the Institute's architect at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. We hired Illy Construction to do $10 million worth of earthquake work, and anyway, they're there now. So the American Film Institute's West Coast campus is there. Anyway, let me fast forward to meeting Eric. I moved to Orange County in 1998, arriving here with my twin boys, which were 8 years old then. I have identical twin boys. Their names are Philip and Joffrey. They're now 26. One went to Chapman and the other went to the Brooks Institute. Both are very successful young men. I couldn't be more proud of them. But anyway, I met Eric at St. James Episcopal Church, right there at the Lido Bridge. My children were becoming, we would go to church and were acolytes. His kids were growing up and becoming acolytes, and Eric and I got into a discussion about scouting. And of course, Eric's been a devoted adult scout leader, and so I mentioned him that I was an Eagle Scout, and he said his boys were on the track to become scouts, and we would keep that camaraderie and communication up through the years about scouting. So I grew up on a hiking troop. I think you all know he loves to hike. Little comment. Eric's going to have hip replacement surgery this coming Tuesday and will be out of our office for a week. So if you need to have any questions answered, you're going to be speaking to me. And I'll fast forward even further to tell you a little bit about what I do there real quick. But anyway, we would develop a friendship and keep that friendship up, keep it up through the years. I appreciate Eric's influence on my sons in my life, and I know Eric has appreciated my influence on his sons. I admire Eric very much and his integrity and what he stands for. So anyway, about 7 or 8 months ago, maybe closer to a year now, I took my son Joffrey to Eric, who is looking for a career. Called Eric, hadn't seen him maybe in, I don't know, maybe about a year probably. He left St. James and they transitioned to a new church. We left the Episcopal Diocese of Los Angeles and became an Anglican church. Anyway, a lot of members went to new congregations, and Eric was one of them. Anyway, I said, my son Joffrey is looking for a career and trying to make some decisions. Would you give him a moment to give him a little input on the insurance industry? And so we did. We had a great meeting. He did it. Joffrey didn't get on the hook. He didn't fall in love with the insurance industry. He wants to be in the real estate industry. But a couple weeks went by, or about a month went by, and I picked up the phone and called Eric and said, you know, I love the conversation. I was totally impressed. So would you let me come over there and share a little bit about what I'd like to do? It's not about money. It's about belonging, and it's about if I thought I could help. And you seem to be in a place where maybe you're staged for growth, and you could use somebody to get in the trench with you. So he said, yeah, come on over. And that was in April. So I have a little title. It's called Director of Internal Operations. I'm not a licensed agent in the state of California yet. I may choose to be, but it's not. I have had no time to do that. We have a database, customer service management software platform that needed to be learned and manipulated, cleaned up. I was explaining to Gene, we have about 1,162 active policies with about 540 active customers. So it's about 2 policies per customer client. We want more policies per client. A successful agency should have that. We have 1 customer service individual. Scott's lovely wife-to-be was with us for a while, which we really appreciated, Heather. And we need another one. So that's been my job, to organize that and grow that and stage that for additional growth. We want additional agents, so we are reaching out to people to bring additional agents under our roof too. So that's what we're busy doing. It's funny, we go, some weeks we go 4 up, and it seems like we stay 4 up, and then we come 5 back, so we have our peaks and our valleys and our growing pains, but Eric and I get along great, we communicate well, and I'm very proud and happy to be there. So a great tip for us is someone that maybe I can marry with my background in the business world, to really sit down with someone and listen to what their needs are. I just brought the biggest client into the agency. I brought Pacific States Utility Company. We just wrote a little over $100,000 annual premium with them, with a single client. We wrote their general liability. We wrote their umbrella. They are the state of California's largest mobile home utility monitoring company. In other words, they take a mobile home park, which could be 400 or 500 units, and then they meter all the electricity, gas, and water, and then they capture all that information and they give it back to the management team that owns the park. And I knew the individual that owned the company and introduced Eric, and we brought them aboard. Bruce Cooper, that owns Ullman Sales, and my background in yachting, I took Eric to Bruce, and we sat down in front of Bruce, and we brought on Ullman Sales and their general liability and workman's comp and those types of policies. Anyway, I like meeting people. Thank you. I like having a chance to know what their needs are rather than running across and saying, can you? Because half the time the can you has got more to go with it if you'll just give us a few extra seconds to digest what your needs are. I wrote an article for us called Are You Collectible? It was something I was going to read. I won't read it, but what it's really about was as your assets grow, and I mentioned it, whatever it was, a couple weeks ago, as your assets grow, you really need to think about transferring the loss that would occur to insurance, is really what it's all about. It's protecting your assets. It's protecting your cash. And cash comes to play when you're underinsured. And then someone says, well, you're underinsured, but I got a judgment against you, so I want you to pay me and use your cash to pay me. Let alone use your real estate assets that have equity in them. I need you to sell them because I'm going to lien them and I'm going to collect that. So think about having enough insurance. It's the cheapest way to protect yourself. And that's it. If you have any questions, please come up to me. I've worked in a variety of industries, from hazardous material abatement industries, where I ran the company to as an interim CEO, to